Hi there, Jake here. I apologize in advance on my voice if I start to get a little scratchy. Unfortunately, RJ is sick again, and since I've been home all week, I've had a bit more exposure than usual, and I'm definitely catching a little bit of whatever they have. So, if my voice sounds a little rough, it is fairly reflective of the year that I have had. So this is our usual annual wrap-up video, and 2022 has frankly been a very rough year overall. There have definitely been some successes this year, some good big things. The biggest accomplishment of the year was really us finally becoming homeowners. As you can see, we actually had room for a full-size Christmas tree for the first time ever. And menorah in the window and everything. So we have had some nice holidays at the very least. It's just that everything has been very, very stressful for this year as a whole. And that has been really reflected by the output of the channel across the course of this year. Obviously, started off pretty strong. I managed to get out episodes 95, 96, 97, the first 11 rapid run-throughs and deeper looks at Power Rangers Dino Fury. We were chugging along well with the live commentaries, looking back, and I was really hoping that this summer I'd be able to really power through and get the final episodes of the series out in time for the 10-year anniversary. But unfortunately, that is obviously not what happened. The vasovagal syncope episodes that I experienced back in May really disrupted a lot of that, and there was already disruptions before then. 95 was intended to come out last year, and I tried to get it out before the end of the year, and I just could not make that happen. I was literally working to edit remotely from a New Year's Eve party that I was at. I was working so hard to try and get that episode out, and release it for 2021, and then obviously that didn't shake out, and that ended up being sort of an unfortunate start to the year in certain regards. Then I ended up experiencing some major issues with my computer, where my original primary hard drive that was well over a decade old finally gave out on me. I had that computer since late 2008, and this was 2022, so it lasted for a good 13 and a half years, that primary hard drive. But that meant that I didn't have my computer for 2.5 weeks, which included during spring break. And I tried really hard to fight it, but I knew that this was going to keep me from being able to hit my goals of finishing the series this year. I really did know, even before then, that I was really pushing it to try and hit those goals. I really set unreasonably high goals for myself this year, and I wanted to try and believe I could still do it, and I paid the price. Physically, mentally, emotionally, I really paid the price this year. Honestly, when my computer needed to go into the shop last year, in the fall, and that pushed out the planned release for 95, I knew then, I'm like, I was all out of opportunities for there to be delays. And when I had that delay, I'm like, this is going to disrupt my schedule for me releasing the end of this series. I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to hit that goal of finishing the series. But I want to, I need to. I kept telling myself I could do it, I could do it, I could do it. And I was wrong. And, you know, the last video that I released prior to this was about, you know, dealing with failure and learning from failure. And I'm still working on that. You know, it's not a one and done thing. You don't immediately, you're like, okay, I recognize that this was a failure that I now need to learn from, and now I can be okay with that. There is an emotional and psychological toll that takes on you, and even if you do learn from failure, it takes a while to figure out what you're learning and how to approach things differently. But yeah, this has probably been one of the worst years for my mental health that I've had in quite some time. Possibly in the span of time that I have been doing this series, this YouTube channel, which has now been over 10 years. And the cracks were already showing back at the 9-year anniversary mark. You guys, if you saw the 9-year anniversary special where I took a look at Bo Burnham's inside, obviously I was really desperately hoping that I'd still be able to hit my goal of completing the series within the 10-year span that I had allowed myself to expand to. You know, obviously this has been year 3 for over 5 years. And that's just been really difficult to cope with. And that has not been the only thing that I've been working on coping with. You know, the process of buying a house and moving into a house and settling in a house is also exhausting. You know, just the fact that I was actually able to engage in the move without passing out was frankly remarkable, considering how I had been up until that point. I basically was horizontal for the entire first half of July, and then the entire second half of July was packing and moving. And it's only because I learned from our previous moving experiences, and that this was a case of us moving from a smaller location to a larger location where we had more room to unpack into, that we were able to engage in the move as well as we did. Yeah, that was, you know, in certain regards, a case of me having learned from previous failures and being able to use that to limit the stressors on myself during that move. So yeah, this was also the year of the midterms, which I had been really stressing over for quite some time as well. Because I was nervous. Oh, we're gonna lose the Senate. We're gonna lose the Senate, and we won't be able to see any climate change action taken for the next 2 years, or any action taken on voting rights for the next 2 years, and that's just going to allow the parties that want to subvert our democratic institutions even more opportunity to flourish, and then we're going to lose our chances entirely. And that might still be true. I don't know. I can't predict the future. You know, but at the same time, the accomplishment of volunteering and seeing so many people turn out and seeing the Democratic majorities in the Senate expand was remarkable. And it's just tragic that it came at the expense of the House of Representatives, which the sense of utter hopelessness that hit me during those weeks was really, really hard to work through. And the fact that it was coming right on the heels, right up on the heels of me having to deal with not hitting this 10-year personal goal. And with RJ getting sick from daycare over and over again, and MJ getting sick from RJ, and everything just continually being disrupted, and we hadn't been able to finish painting the house. We just have so many boxes that are still unpacked. I just felt very destabilized, and despairing and lacking in hope. And that's why this year was such a difficult year, and why the end of October, beginning of November in particular, were especially difficult. Because I was dealing with things that, to a certain extent, I knew were inevitable to a degree. And I'd just been trying to fight that inevitability so hard, and I was losing basically an impossible fight. And just the despair of that really sunk in. It was negative. It's negatively impacted my performance at my job, my sleep. It was just a very, very rough year that was compounded by the anxiety that I was experiencing over my physical health after the incidents back in May. Those vasovagal syncope episodes, that was the most, probably the most extreme medical event that I've personally experienced in my life. And I'm very lucky for that. I've never, I've never really been hospitalized or anything. I was taken to the hospital on that day. But I didn't have to stay overnight or anything. It was just had to get some fluids, and they sent me home. But scariest physical thing to ever happen to me, where I couldn't trust my body to operate. And I still haven't fully emotionally recovered from that. Physically, I think I've been pretty good. I've got a little bit of a cold right now, but at the very least, I drink an absurd amount of water every day now. I try to make sure to really limit any late nights that I have. I'm not pushing like I was doing earlier in the year. Honestly, I pushed so hard on 96 and 97. It was physically hurting me to be conscious. And I shouldn't do that. Nothing should be worth that. But I just kept telling myself, just push a little bit harder, a little bit longer, it'll be done. And then it wasn't. And it continued to not be. And that was just so hard. And that's what made this year so hard. I know 2020 was an unreasonably difficult year for the world as a whole. But 2022 really hit me harder personally. And part of that is because so many of the things from 2020 still remain so unresolved. I'm still masking at work, but every day I'm staring out at a classroom of kids who, they're not wearing masks. They don't know why I'm wearing a mask. And I don't know what they think of me wearing a mask still at this stage when everyone else around them isn't. I know that I'm I'm fully boosted. You know, MJ's got their boosters. RJ's got their boosters, or their actually they're just became old enough for the booster shot. They had their first shot, their first run of vaccines at the end of the summer because they were finally available, and that was another thing. You know, the masking mandates rolled back on daycares before these kids were even old enough to have vaccines. And within a week of the mask mandates rolling back, there were COVID scares at our daycare. Thankfully, you know, knock on wood, RJ hasn't had a direct exposure. We always pull them out before they have a chance to catch that. Hasn't protected them from everything else, but at the very least, you know, they haven't gotten COVID, because that's still running rampant. That we're in the midst of the triple-demic now, and that's insane. That's even a word that now exists. And I'm just trying so hard to keep myself and my family safe at a time when it feels like the people at the top have given up. And that's one of the things that made this year harder than 2020. It's that it's just wearing down. You know, it's not just a pandemic, the big shock of a pandemic, but the fact that it's still going. And people aren't fighting it anymore. And just that despair that sets in from knowing that, you know, to an extent you're fighting a losing battle. But you know you need to keep fighting, and you need to figure out where to find the energy to keep fighting, and that's been becoming more and more difficult. You know, I had all this energy in 2020 to just be like, okay, you know what? We're going to power through this, we'll be okay. We're going to power through this, we'll be okay. And that can work when things are short term. But when they keep going, you lose that power. And it's so hard. It's so difficult. And that's where I've been at, just so depleted going into, you know, these major events that I really needed, like, to be firing on all cylinders for. I needed to have, you know, be on top of things for volunteering, for finishing my series, for buying a house, and we got the house. It's great. It's better than I really imagined it would be, which is fantastic. We were very, very, very fortunate. I know a lot of people are not, and that breaks my heart, because everyone should be able to have this. Everyone should be able to have a home where they can feel safe. And there's so many people going without and continuing to go without, and more people going without as these world crises just keep rolling. You know, conflict in Ukraine, the pandemic, increasing wealth inequality, the housing market exploding again. We were, again, very fortunate. We got just as the prices were starting to come down, but just before the rates really got up. So we got that nice little dip there. But, you know, we probably could have gotten our home for half as much 2 years ago. And I don't want to think about how difficult it is for people who aren't as fortunate as we are to have, you know, both, for us to have a good support structure and to both be gainfully employed, hopefully throughout the next year. And that's always a conflict in your mind, you know, thinking about, oh, everything's so difficult, but at least I have this, or at least I have that. And I try to take solace in it, but, it doesn't necessarily make the difficult parts easier. But, there's still hope for next year. 2023, I was really hoping would be the year that I get a break. And that was really what I'd been working towards. And maybe I will eventually. But first I'm going to have to spend most of 2023 addressing all the things I didn't get to finish in 2022. I have 11 more episodes to cover of Power Rangers Dino Fury, and then the 10 episodes of Cosmic Fury, and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 30th Anniversary Special. And I have to take care of the other 3 episodes that I hadn't covered, that I hadn't finished this year for DRPR. 95, 96, and 97 were massive. 95 was one of the most complex episodes I'd ever done, with the introduction of Darkonda as a major antagonist, and all the effects and complexities that went into that full unveiling episode. 96 was the longest episode I had ever done, and involved some of the most ridiculous fight choreography I've ever done, because I was in the shot multiple different times in multiple different ways and had to choreograph that, which I couldn't have done without my stunt double Yash, who's one of the few people who I still am consistently filming with. And that was the longest episode I'd ever done until 97, which was even longer, and really stretched my voice acting ability. Like, I did actually accomplish some really impressive work with my series this year, even if I didn't manage to finish it. And the next 3 episodes are going to be even wilder, because 98, 99, 100, this is the culmination of a decade's worth of work. And I've got still all these bits of filming left to do. I still need to finish constructing some props, and I still need to finish recording, and there's even small bits that I haven't even written yet. Because I've just been so focused on, okay, I need to finish this, I need to finish this. But I still need to write this little bit for 99, this little bit for 100. I've filmed scenes that I've just had in my head without having a script for them. There are scenes that I filmed 6 years ago, now, that still haven't seen the light of day yet. And no, wait, 6 years? Yeah, 6 years ago. Because it was 2016 when I last filmed those scenes. So right now, looking at how difficult this has been, and how there are still things that still need to be done for certain episodes, scenes, or certain episodes to get done, I'm looking at giving myself more time and giving myself a little bit more grace. This next summer is going to be the 30th anniversary of Power Rangers. And while I couldn't get everything together for my 10-year anniversary, I'm thinking that next summer, celebrating the 30th anniversary of the franchise, just as year 1 celebrated the 20th anniversary of the franchise, year 3 will celebrate the 30th. So my focus, and I'll be releasing more concrete dates in an upcoming video, is going to be building up to releasing the final 3 episodes of Power Reviews next summer. I feel bad I couldn't be this fall. I'd love for it to be like this winter and spring, but realistically, I need to work on getting my act together professionally, And I need to recognize that I can't just push through and just make things happen just by force of will alone in unreasonable time frames. I used to be able to an extent, but I've got too much other things going on in my life now. Back then, when I started this show, I barely had a job. I was living in a little apartment. And MJ and I weren't even married yet, let alone now I have a house to take care of, which is a lot. I'm a father now. That's a lot more of a lot. And I have a career as a teacher, which, I do need to dedicate more time to. I try to do my best by my students. I know that I know my material well, and I know that I'm capable of conveying it and forming rapport with my students, and I still do that to an extent, but I got hit with just so much this year, and it was, some days it just felt like I was just like trying to drive through. I was driving down a foggy highway at 90 miles an hour, just trying my best to just see what was in front of me just well enough that I could compensate, but not being able to just slow down. And it really, really it's been heartbreaking to not be able to do all the things I feel like I need to do. And I don't know, maybe it's old hat for year end of year wrap ups to feel a little bit like a pity party. I don't want that to be what this is, but I'm not really sure how else to be honest about what this year has been. And there's other stuff too that I haven't even gotten into that is private. I don't need to share everything. I've just had a very difficult year. And I want next year to not be that. That's all I really want. But it's still going to be tough. It's not going to be an easy year. It's not going to be half as easy as I was hoping it would be. I've still got a tall order ahead of me. Like, even with pushing the finale out to the summer, it's still a lot of work. And part of that is because I was just not able to get nearly as much work done this year as I was hoping, because I was just so physically and emotionally compromised. Sometimes I sit down to edit and I just stare at the screen and just can't move forward. And it's so hard to deal with. And being like, okay, but what do I do? Do I just walk away from it and just lose the time that I was supposed to spend editing? Or do I just try and power through and make it even and keep making things harder for myself? There's no easy answers. And I wish that there were. But, I've done a lot of work so far. A lot of filming. A lot of prep. A decent amount of editing. And if I can just keep chipping away at it, it will get done. I just want it to be, I just hope it can get done by this new goal deadline. I think it can be. So long as I keep chipping away at it. And that's one of the things that I think I need to really take away from this year, is that you can make a difference. You can, work towards your goals. it's never going to be, it's not ever going to be guaranteed to be quick. Sometimes it might just happen all at once. Sometimes it takes a while. But if it means enough to you, you keep working at it and you keep finding meaning in working at it. Even if it's something as simple as, oh, I edited together a minute's worth of footage. That can be an accomplishment. It's like that's 1 minute that I didn't have before. Or even if it's like a 3-second shot. Okay, those are 3 seconds that I didn't have before. And even if it's within that 3-second shot, it's just, okay, it's an effect. It's like, all right, I put in a few more layers to that effect that I didn't have before. And I was thinking about this as I was shoveling my driveway for the first time, because I now have a driveway. You know, you just keep moving each shovel full of snow. You keep going, you keep going. And it may feel like you're just doing it forever until the driveway's clear. Maybe it might take 15 minutes to get your car out one day. Maybe it'll take 3 hours another day. And when it's something that spans over the course of years, it can be really hard to see anything being chipped away. But I can still find hope in the small, little victories, even if I know they're not enough to hit the goal in the timeline that I've set for myself, even if I know that, yeah, it's not enough, but it's at least some progress, some step forward. I know I said this at the end of my 9-year anniversary video. Gotta keep moving forward. Let's keep going. I'm gonna just keep going. And eventually I'll get there. And I need to reflect back on all the other parts of my life that have taken longer than I thought. But I got there. Having a home. I'm 37. I think most people, when they're young, imagine that they'll have a house before they're 37. But that's not the circumstances that we were dealt. At this point, having a home is something that became like an almost unattainable dream for so many of us. I kept working and we got there. And we were lucky to get there. My favorite book series, The Wheel of Time, I started reading when I was 13. And I finished reading that I finished reading that when I was 35, I want to say. Something like, it took me over 20 years before I finally read the final book. But I did. I started doing Taekwondo in college. I got my black belt. When I was 35. I graduated college in 2007, didn't get my master's degree until 2020, 13 years later. MJ and I were dating for 8 years before we got engaged because, frankly, we weren't in a financially stable position to be getting married. But we got there. And now we've been married for 7 years. We have a wonderful child. We've got a house. Not everything always pans out. I'm still not working on Power Rangers. That's a goal that I might never actually accomplish. I don't know. I'm going to keep trying, keep working. And that's all I can really do. And just try and take solace in the fact that, hey, That's a shovel full of snow that I just got out of my way. And maybe it'll snow again tomorrow. But at least I managed to clear away this much today. So that's, I guess, what I am taking away from 2022 and have to carry forward into 2023. I hope that you're all able to clear your own personal emotional driveways. It's a weird metaphor. I think you get what I mean. I hope that you've had happy and safe holidays. And I hope that you all have a fantastic new year. And that by working together, we can make the world better. One little bit at a time. And hopefully that will be enough. So, thank you again. And until next year, farewell, Ranger fans. Let the power protect you.